Hey Wire Monkeys, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Cabling. This episode we're talking about industry trends. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, customers, IT people. We're connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind clicking on the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is created? If you're listening to us on one of the audio podcast platforms, give us a 5-star rating. Those simple little steps helps us take on the algorithm so we can educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of people in the ICT industry. Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? You know I do a live stream on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD, and you know that's me. Don't even try to pretend like I'm not. Your favorite RCDD questions on installation, design, certification, anything you need to know. Even do career path questions. But I can hear you now. But Chuck, I'm driving my truck at Thursday night at 6 p.m. so I'm going to get into an accident. Relax. I record them, and you can watch them at your convenience. Also, while this show is free and will always remain free, if you find value in this content, would you mind clicking on that QR code right there? You can become a Patreon member, you can buy a t-shirt, you can support the program so we can keep doing this. So as I said in the intro, I've said this more than once in my podcast, I'm kind of sad because I'm at the end of my career and there's so much cool stuff coming down the pike. I really wish I could work in this industry another 40 years because there's so much cool stuff coming down. So I wanted to do a show on industry trends. And who better than to talk to about than the CEO of the leading membership organization for the ICT industry, Mr. John Daniels. John, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chuck, thank you, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I appreciate you coming on today.
Great intro.
Yeah, I've said it once or twice. So for the 4 people in the industry who doesn't know who you are or who BICSI is, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you and BICSI are?
Yeah, well, I'll spend the least amount of time on me because BICSI is what's most important. I'm John Daniels, the CEO of BICSI, of course. I've been in the industry, or been at BICSI since January 1st of 2020.
Right before COVID,
right before the pandemic, and I had this misfortunate opportunity to close the building on March the 18th of 2020. But I've learned a lot since I've been here. I came from primarily the healthcare industry, working in IT and healthcare as a chief information officer and helping hospitals and health systems around the world adopt technology in a way that improves patient quality, patient safety, patient care, and patient experience and all of that. So a lot of experience doing that. But my core was IT and working in IT. Learning how to do cable plants, leading cable plant projects, terminating fiber and copper cabling myself. I actually had the opportunity to do that.
Fiber?
I
Nice.
did. Only once or twice because I just wanted to learn how to do it.
That counts.
I talked the contractors into, hey, I want to come in while you guys are doing this in the middle of the night, and I just want to watch you do it. And then they would teach me how to do some of that. And then I also did some Cisco certifications. I did a Cisco CCNA certification at one point early in my career. Carried that for about 3 or 4 years. Didn't renew it because it was hard.
I hear that about that certification.
It was very hard, but it taught me a lot. So that's really helped prepare me to come work at BICSI, I think, right? In addition to my military background. But
thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for your service to the industry. BICSI is a nonprofit professional association, right? So our focus is on our mission, which is to advance the ICT profession, right? And all of those people that work in the profession, like yourself and others that are out there, the designers, the installers, the project managers that are working across the industry, across all verticals within the industry. We talk about healthcare. Our members are working in healthcare. Other industries include finance, hospitality, retail, space for that matter. I don't know if you came to
I did.
our last conference.
That was cool. The data centers on the moon.
Yeah.
Of course, that spawned the meme. How are we was that single mode or multi-mode that you're running out there?
That's a great question. We'll have to ask Chris when he comes back.
Yeah.
But space, and including NASA, we've got folks members that work at NASA and are part of the Artemis program and so forth. So a lot of our members are covering all facets of the ICT profession, of the ICT community, from design, like I said, to installations, project management. And BICSI's role is to help support them, help educate them, and help them succeed to advance the industry. So that's really what BICSI is about.
Nice. I interface with, I don't know, thousands of people a year because my day job, I'm an instructor. And
I've seen you a few times on social, so
yeah,
you're out there.
I always, well, that's a whole different game there. And I always ask people at the very beginning, do I have any RCDDs or BICSI technician installers? And because that would help, as an instructor, helps me to make sure I put the questions at the right level, right? I don't want to ask RCDD questions if they're all installers, and vice versa. And then I say, tell me if you're credentialed, and then if it's not credentialed, is it on your radar? And almost every time, half of them are saying, yes, it's on my radar. And then every once in a blue moon, I'll get somebody say, what's RCDD? What's BICSI? I'm like, have you been living under a rock? you can't be in this industry for more than 2 days and not have heard of BICSI.
Yeah, I'm surprised not as many people know about BICSI because frankly, I didn't know about BICSI before I came to work here, before this job opportunity came available. And it's a gold mine. I mean, it's the world's best kept secret, I think, because of all the resources and the opportunity that this industry or this organization has brought to the industry, right? So I'm maybe call both of us an evangelist. We're trying to get the word out there, and we do appreciate all you're doing to get the word out there. So you're right. BICSI is a good. For now, a well-kept secret, but we don't want it to be a secret. We want to get the word out there.
Yes, that's why I'm out there telling everybody, look, get certified, get educated, and that's another battle I fight all the time too. Is there are some facets of technicians out there who don't want to get certified, and I think it's mostly because they have bad memories of school and test taking and all that stuff. But that's a subject for a different show. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Right?
It is a different subject.
Yes. Yeah. So you heard my intro. The industry is changing rapidly. I mean, you got single pair Ethernet, you've got fault managed power systems, and all this cool stuff coming down the pike. How's BICSI adapting to all this?
I would say we're adapting quite well, frankly. We've put out about 16 new publications just in the last year with updates on the various best practices and the standards that we're updating as well. So we're adapting pretty well. I think we could do even better. What I'd like to see us to be able to do is to maybe increase the frequency of those updates because of how fast the industry is evolving. And it's evolving extremely fast. I mean, we were talking about the data center on the moon. I mean, holy cow.
Right.
It wasn't until January of this year that we had our first data center on the moon. And they're going to be launching the second one this year as well, by the end of the year, they say. So the industry is evolving fast. And I'd like to see us be able to adapt to that faster, have more frequent updates. And we just have to figure out how to do that.
As you said, more frequent. I'm thinking, yes. But I heard the collective sigh of my audience members. Oh, great. Now I got to go buy another thing. And I keep telling people all the time, look, our industry literally changes at the speed of light. I mean, literally changes at the speed of light. So do you want to buy a document that's already 18 months old that doesn't even talk about some new technology that the installers are putting in the field? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You do need to have both of them.
Well, we don't want to overwhelm technicians. We don't want to overwhelm the designers. So we've got to be mindful of that. So how can we balance publishing updates as frequently as possible without overwhelming the folks that are trying to keep up as well, right? So there's a lot of considerations that we have to factor into how we go about increasing our update frequencies and making sure that we don't overwhelm. I think that's another reason why we do a lot of events. I think this year alone, this fiscal year alone, we've probably will have done about 150 different events around the world, including our fall and winter conferences. All of our virtual ICT forums and face-to-face ICT forums. We just did one in Houston last week, which was a huge success in collaboration with RE+, the Renewable Energy Association. The VILTs, all of the webinars, all of our BICSI endorsed events that are happening around the world. The month of May, this month, is just saturated with events around the world. In Australia, in the Middle East, in South America. In fact, I'm going to Bogota next week to facilitate a panel discussion for that group down there, and we're going to be making a major announcement once I'm down there, but that'll come later. I don't want to spill the beans yet.
I have noticed over the last 5 years or so that BICSI has been pushing a lot more on the international stuff, and I'm glad to see that, because they're doing cabling everywhere, and it's a great organization, so why not be international? And you got to kind of, but that makes it, because you're talking about the frequency, changing the publications frequently, that puts a lot more work on the volunteers.
Yeah, we oh my goodness, we're so reliant on the volunteers, the 500 plus volunteers that work across our 30 volunteer groups that are out there working. It's a lot of work for them. And you think about...
And they have day jobs.
And they have day jobs, exactly. So you think about the TDMM that just came out, that we launched at the winter conference, right? And
I got mine already.
The award, yes, good. I saw that actually. The award that was given to the TDMM Editorial Review Board.
The Presidential Eagle Award.
The Presidential Eagle Award, right. And when I looked at how much work went into just the TDMM alone, 60,000 lines of content that stuff wasn't just reviewed one time.
Right.
I mean, they went over it and over it and over it multiple times to make sure that they got it right. It's a lot of work and a lot of workload to put on top of the volunteers. And so, again, that's another factor that goes into how frequently do we want to do these updates, because these folks do have daytime jobs, right?
That's why you need more volunteers.
We need more volunteers.
That's covered under a different interview with somebody else coming out later on.
Good. Emphasize it, because we definitely need more volunteers, and we're open to anybody that wants to work with us. I mean, we are what they call an ANSI Standards Development Organization, right?
SDO.
And
acronym challenge, SDO.
SDO, that's right. We are ASD, I think, is an acronym that they use as well. Accredited Standards Developer, right? So we are an accredited standards developer, and as such, we can't discriminate between BICSI members and non-BICSI members when it comes to volunteering to write the best practices. And it's not just BICSI members that are using these standards or using the best practices. So our invitation's open to the world. Anybody working in the ICT industry that knows about cabling standards and data center standards and that sort of thing, we welcome them to the table, whether they're a member of BICSI or not. And so, yes, spread the word, let folks know that we need volunteers, and we're always open to having folks share with us their expert knowledge and expertise to make these standards work for the industry.
Yeah, our industry is, I make this analogy all the time, our industry is like a bicycle. There are people who are front wheels, there are people at the back wheel, there's people at the seat, there's people at the handlebar, there's the frame. There's nobody who's an expert in everything in this industry. That's why I consider myself a general. So I'm like the general doctor. When you go in because you got a cough, I'm the one that says, okay, now you need to go see the specialist.
Yeah.
Right? I'm a good generalist.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm glad to see, I've sat in a lot of the committee meetings. I used to be in a part of that whole developing stuff a long time ago, but now with the other thing going on, I just don't have time to do it. But I do go every winter conference. I always go and sit in them because I want to stay plugged in and see what's going on and stuff.
And here's the great news, Chuck. There's a place for you as well in this whole standard volunteer, organization. And you've pretty much carved out your space here with Let's Talk Cabling, so that's very helpful. But there is room for everybody, and I love that analogy because there's always...
Feel free to use it, but if you do use it, you got to give me credit. I got to help get the word of Let's Talk Cabling out there.
You got it.
Always branding, always branding.
You got it. But there, like you said, there's a place for everybody in this whole ecosystem of pulling these standards and best practices together, and I enjoy the glow that comes out of these, off the faces of these people that are working on the standards program, especially when they get accolades like the Presidential Legal Award, or when our publications win industry awards, which you might hear about that again at some point in the future, because we may have just won another award.
Nice.
But I'm going to hold off on announcing that. Of course, we'll let Clark take care of that for us. But there's definitely a place for everybody.
And now a message from our sponsor.
Big or small, local or nationwide, Fortress Telecom is your go-to partner for all your connectivity needs. With our expertise in low-voltage cabling, bidirectional Tier 2 fiber certification, copper certification up to Cat 8, and Wi-Fi site surveys using Ekahau Sidekick, there's no project too challenging for us. Count on Fortress Telecom to deliver top-notch solutions tailored to your business, wherever you are across the nation. Visit fortresstelecom.com or call us today to start your seamless connectivity journey. Fortress Telecom, we are secure IT. Let's get back to the show.
So you heard me talk about at the beginning about how everything is changing. What is BICSI doing to address these changes coming down the pike?
Yeah, I saw that question in advance, and there's so much going on and so much that we're doing to prepare for that. I had to take some notes. So give me just a minute to sort of walk through what those are, right?
I like when I ask tough questions and people got to refer to their notes.
Well, it's a fun question. It's a great question, right? Because there's a lot going on, and it's hard to capture it all in a short little podcast, right? So what I want to try to do is encapsulate it as best I can by just giving a high level sort of overview of what we're doing, right? So right now I would say we got a lot of things baking in the oven, right? So we're building a new bicycle, I guess you could say, kind of building a new
faster,
bicycle.
stronger.
Yes, actually yes. So we've learned a lot in terms of lessons that came out of the pandemic and what we had to go through there, because if you remember, BICSI at the time was 100% pretty much in person. All of our events, all of our courses, all of our training and everything else was pretty much virtually 100% in person. Well, like I told you, I shut the office down on March the 18th because of COVID, right? So that meant no classes in the academy. That meant no more conferences, at least until we got through it. And the team had to pivot like on a dime to convert everything to virtual classes, right? And they did. They did phenomenally well at doing that. So we learned a lot of lessons from that. We get a lot of feedback from credential holders and from our members. And I think over the past couple of years, we've taken a deliberate look at the history of BICSI, as well as sort of the landscape of where we find ourselves in today, post-pandemic, right? And when I say we look at the landscape, there's 6 things that I think we realized after doing that assessment. BICSI has to become globally scalable, right? We have to be able to scale everything that we do globally, and it's got to be fast, right? So we've got to do things that give us that scalability. We've got to be able to respond rapidly to opportunities. Like you said, the technologies are evolving at lightning speed,
daily,
right?
It seems like daily sometimes.
So we have to be able to respond to that. And I think over the past 50 years of BICSI's history, it hasn't been able to adapt or respond as rapidly as the technology is evolving. And of course, I'm not saying anything bad about BICSI, of course, because BICSI's done a phenomenal job over the past 50 years. But in doing so, we also, in order to be able to respond rapidly, in order to be able to scale globally, we need to look at our processes. We need to look at our data governance and how we manage the organization, how we manage the enterprise to better support and achieve our mission, right? We've also had to look at how do we create some efficiency in order to give us the ability to respond rapidly and scale. How do we elevate the digital experience? Because digital isn't going away. Digital experience is going to be around for a long time, if not forever. We need to enhance that digital experience, not only in the touch points where people take education classes or online or do webinars or virtual ICT forums, but also how they interact with BICSI online. How do they purchase services? How do they apply for their certifications? And how do they sign up for classes? We've got to make that much, much better and improve that digital experience. So I think that's about 5 or 6 things, but those are the things that we're focused on. So now coming out of that assessment, we're currently undergoing what I would describe as a multi-phase, multi-year digital transformation project across the enterprise to help us modernize our infrastructure. So while technology has been advancing, BICSI's technology hasn't necessarily advanced as quickly, so we're trying to fix that. So we've got a lot of things going on internally to improve how we support our mission, how we support the ICT professionals that are out there. How do we redesign things to make it more enjoyable, to improve that experience, right? So we're looking at revamping our membership programs to increase the value of the membership programs. So there'll be some information about that coming out sometime in the next few months. That's for individual members and corporate members, right? So we're making some changes there. We're looking at our CEC program policy. We're going to be making some pretty significant changes there as well to give folks more opportunities to get CECs rather than how it's done today, right? So we're trying to enhance that and improve that as well. And then we're looking at our conferences and events. Like I told you, we've probably this year done the most conferences and events since the pandemic, which is about 150 in total if you count everything. That's a lot of work, right? So we want to try to, we're taking a holistic look at our whole conference and event strategy. And the recommendations coming out of that, we're not expecting until later in the summer. But once we get those, it's going to be focused on how we elevate the conference experience and the event experience for everybody that participates with BICSI. So we got a lot going on, a lot in the hopper.
And how many employees does BICSI have? Because that sounds like a lot of stuff.
Well, right now, not enough. and some of the directors and the organization will tell you and tell me that we need more people all the time because there's a lot going on. But again, that's another reason why we're looking at the infrastructure. We're trying to automate as much as we can. We're trying to create some efficiencies, do some process redesign, not only internally, but certainly at the point where our customers, our members, touch BICSI and engage with BICSI, right? So we're trying to we're looking at redesigning all of that, and I think it's safe to say that within the next couple of years, you're going to see some significant changes with respect to how BICSI engages the world.
Yeah. And I'm glad that BICSI is changing because, my dad always used to say, just because that's the way Granddad always did it doesn't mean that's the way you should do it, son.
Yeah.
And because you talked about BICSI 50 years ago, it was a totally different environment 50 years
Absolutely.
ago. And in today's environment, you got the virtual instructor-led training, the VILT, right? You've got the conferences. We'll talk about the Vegas conference coming up. I'll ask you questions about that there. But
right.
But you do have to adapt and change because otherwise you become stagnant and people quit plugging in. So can you discuss some initiatives that BICSI is launching to stay ahead of all these trends?
So I think I've pretty much covered most of the stuff that we're doing already, right? So we're looking at the frequency of updates on our standards and publications. We're looking at modernizing our infrastructure. We're looking at modernizing our membership program, modernizing the continuing education credit program. We're expanding the affiliate program. I haven't said much about our affiliate program, but we're up to 3 affiliates officially today. And there may be some new affiliate announcements coming up in the near future.
Nice.
So we're expanding the affiliate program and trying to be more deliberate and more impactful with how we engage with our affiliate partners, if you will, around the world. So that's a change that's sort of built into our digital transformation project as well. So we're trying to, again, scale up and create some scalability so that we can add more and more affiliates over time. And again, it all feeds into the BICSI mission, which is advancing the profession. And it's not just the profession in the U.S., it's everybody who works in the industry around the world. And there's a lot of people around the world that work in the industry. We're serving, I think, members across about 100 different countries right now.
Right.
There are countries around the world that recognize BICSI standards and BICSI best practices. So we're very fortunate about that, but we obviously want to continue that expansion.
That's actually a great segue, because how does BICSI influence those global standards like the ISO, IEC and stuff? How do you guys influence them?
And so that's the beauty of BICSI being an accredited standards developer. being accredited by ANSI. ANSI is a very well established and a most credible accreditation organization, right? So they're all about consensus-based standards, and not just in the U.S., while their focus is a lot on supporting the standards requirements of the U.S. and promoting standards within all industries in the U.S., but they're also international. They do have international requirements for standards.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they have requirements for those ASDs that want to develop international standards, and they want to be accredited by ANSI. They have to follow the requirements of ANSI in order to be considered international standards. BICSI does that, right? So our standards is an international standards program, so we work with ANSI in that respect, but we're also a member of the U.S. Technical Advisory Group, which is a group under ANSI that works with the International Organization for Standards, ISO, right? So we work with ISO as well. In fact, we just recently got involved in a brand new project that will result in a brand new ISO standard. It's never been a standard on this before, and BICSI has been asked to participate in that with other associations, and so we're in the process of working with other international delegations like Japan and Germany and France and others, pulling this standard together. Now that's about a 3-year process, so it may be a couple of years or 3 years before we see the final product, but it's one of those ways that we're contributing to the adoption of standards and the development of standards that are internationally applicable, and that organizations around the world can use to, again, create a standard ecosystem, if you will, for the ICT professional, whether they're working in the U.S. or outside the U.S.
Hey everyone, we're taking a quick break to talk about an essential resource for anyone interested in the vast world of physical security. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, you'll want to tune into Security Today. Hosted by Bear, this podcast dives deep into everything security related, from insightful articles and thought-provoking philosophies to the latest trending topics in the industry. Every episode of Security Today is packed with information that's crucial for staying informed and ahead in the field. Join Bear as he explores complex topics with ease, making even the most intricate security concepts accessible to everyone. Follow the journey on Instagram and Twitter at UncleBear_ and at Security Today Podcast. Now let's dive back into our episode.
So what role do you see BICSI playing with in the integration of emerging technologies?
Well, for me it's relatively obvious, but I made a few notes here that again, I want to make sure I cover it all because there's a lot, and this is not all inclusive at all. I'll say that BICSI plays a critical role in the integration of these emerging technologies into the ICT profession because of all the things that we do as a professional association, starting with education and training. Obviously, our education and training platform, the BICSI Learning Academy, is the perfect platform to integrate those emerging technologies into our curriculum, into our virtual ICT forums, into our webinars, our instructor-led training classes, and our conferences and events, right? I mean, if you look at the topics that we talk about for our conferences, especially the one coming up, we're touching on all of those topics in some form or fashion by the professionals who are actually experts in those particular areas, right? We're bringing them to the conference and giving them the opportunity to teach us and help us understand what these emerging technologies are doing. So that's first and foremost is our education and training, and of course the BICSI's certification program, the ICT Certification Institute, plays a big role in that as well. So not only are we trying to train and educate people on what these emerging technologies are, over time, these emerging technologies, as they're integrated into the ICT profession and the work that our professionals do, that knowledge, those skill sets and those things will be baked into our certification program so that at some point folks will be able to demonstrate their knowledge by getting the certifications that are certifying them on the skills and competencies that we publish, right? So certification is one of those. The other things that we do is, we don't work in a vacuum. We're not the only association out there, and we try to work collaboratively with as many associations as we can possibly create capacity for. There's a lot of them. We can't work with everyone to the level that we'd like to, but we are working with quite a few. I just mentioned a little bit ago that we just had a virtual ICT forum at the RE Plus conference in Houston last week, right? So that's a collaboration that we're working with them on. We have an MOU with eMERGE Alliance, which is
what's MOU?
eMERGE, a memorandum of understanding.
Oh, okay.
Yep, we have an MOU, memorandum of understanding with eMERGE Alliance. eMERGE Alliance is, how do I describe them? How do I describe eMERGE Alliance? eMERGE Alliance is an association that brings together organizations who are working in the energy space, not necessarily renewable energy like RE Plus is, but they're part of that ecosystem, right? And so they're working on a concept where you create a microgrid where power, like computing, I have edge data centers, edge computing, or what have you. They're working on the concept of a power grid where you also have power at the edge as well, right? And the source of that power can come from multiple different sources, renewable energy being one of those, commercial power being another one, and what have you. But there's so much happening and beginning to happen in that space alone that I think that's relevant to our members. And so that's why we're working with the eMERGE Alliance to figure out how we can work together. eMERGE Alliance is working to try to create what they call Vanguard standards for how this microgrid and some of the fault managed power technologies and capabilities fit into sort of the ICT ecosystem. And so we're working with them, again, beginning with the education piece to educate our members and their members on how these technologies and what we're doing on the ICT side and what's happening on the power side merge together, right? So eMERGE Alliance, that's one collaboration that we're working on. We also collaborate with organizations like the electrical associations, NECA. We've done some work with NECA before. We're doing some work with IEC. Lots of collaboration. So again, we recognize that we're not the only ones.
It's a better product when you collaborate. I mean, when all the organizations are talking to each other, then you're all synchronized. You don't
Absolutely.
And from somebody in the field, there's value that, well, not necessarily the field or a project manager and estimator. There's value there because then you don't have 3 different people telling you to do 3 different things. Because as an estimator, you might get a bid where they might put, say, Cat 7 cable. Well, Cat 7 is not in the ANSI standards. So, if you don't, there's some collaboration will help eliminate some of those issues.
So that's the detail that I don't know. Is like I don't have the meat that you have and the depth in those standards. But I'm learning. I hear it all the time. You're absolutely right. Another area that we are involved in, again, it involves collaboration, but working with other associations around policy and doing some policy advocacy type work. So we're part of an organization called the Connected Technologies, CTIC, Connected Technologies Industry Consortium. Yep, I got it, I remembered it. So CTIC, Connected Technologies Industry Consortium, and it's a group of organizations, manufacturers, vendors, associations that are tracking various different policy actions that are taking place around the country, in the U.S. in particular, in the states where in the past we've talked a lot about licensing and how licensing might affect ICT professionals and installers and so forth. Right?
That's a hot topic right now.
That is on low voltage, especially or low energy solutions.
You want to start an argument on the internet, there's a few topics you can go to that will do that, and that's one of them. That is one of them right there. Yeah,
and we recognize that, right? So that's why we're working to try to understand what the impact that has with the convergence of these 2 trades, electrical trade and the ICT integrator, with respect to low energy solutions and connecting those 2 together. So we're working in that consortium to be a part of those discussions and to help influence the education that happens in that space. We're working with the Professional Certification Coalition on the work that they're doing to protect the integrity of and the importance of professional certifications, which is obviously near and dear to BICSI's heart. So we're involved in that coalition. There's other initiatives that are taking place that we're trying to participate in as much as we can. For example, there's a bill that's been introduced that we hope passes that will allow the college 529 savings plans to be used to pay for certifications, right? Professional trade certifications. So it's things like that that we're also doing to try to, again, promote the industry and support the ICT professionals. So it's a big role that BICSI plays, and we want to do more in that area. From an international perspective, I already talked about our international standards program, but and we talked about our standards, and we talked a little bit about our publications, our manuals, right? Our technical manuals. So that's another area where we're able to use that to develop and disseminate best practices or leading practices in the industry. So that's a critical role that we play as well. They're not accredited standards like our standards are, but they're still just as valuable. And I think about the field guides that
you're talking about the ITSM?
I'm talking about the ITSM,
right?
And the
that's
TDM,
Information Transport Systems Installations Methods Manual.
Thank you. You got that right.
I tell people all the time, because a lot of people get confused with all the documents that BICSI puts out, and I tell them, look, if you want to design something, you want the TDM. So the TDM will tell you got to put in plywood in the closet. The ITSM tells you, okay, well, you have to use toggle bolts with fender washers, galvanized screws. So it tells you how to do it. That's the difference between those two documents.
I'm glad you know that. Actually, I do understand. I've learned so much since I've come to BICSI, and I definitely know the distinction between our products that support the designers, support the installers, and support the project managers. We call that our program triangle. And those three legs, without one of those three legs, the profession wouldn't be going anywhere.
Because your future project managers and estimators are today's technicians.
Exactly. So I've learned a lot to know that the program triangle is very important to BICSI and to the industry. So we're going to keep promoting.
Yeah, our industry it's horrible about hiring project managers from outside the industry. Now, there's a train of thought that says, well, if you're a project manager, you're managing widgets. It doesn't matter if it's pieces on an assembly line or if it's jacks in the floor. But the project manager, the crew out in the field has to respect the project manager, and they don't respect the project manager if he doesn't know the difference between Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, or Y295. There's a big disconnect there. So it's better to groom from within, which kind of do that whole triangle thing.
Yeah, and it takes a certain understanding of this particular industry in order to successfully manage these industry projects, the ICT projects. I think about ITIL. I mean, I grew up as a IT guy, computer science background, chief information officer for hospitals, health systems, or what have you, and we relied a lot on ITIL, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library, right? So that was full of processes, and we used that a lot to help manage our projects that we were implementing and installing across our hospital enterprises, right? So you're absolutely right, and I think that's why BICSI's project management courses and credentials and publications are so critical to the industry, because while you may know project management really, really well, you've also got to have knowledge of the industry and the technology and the solutions and things that we do in order to really make sure that those are implemented successfully.
And that's why BICSI has the Registered Telecommunications Project Management credential.
Exactly.
Because that's a big question I get all the time. Should I get the PMP or should I get the RTPM? Well, my first question is, do you plan on staying in the ICT industry? If you plan on staying in ICT, then RTPM. Because it's they're both project management certifications, but the RTPM is like fine-tuned specifically for our industry. If you're not going to stay in the industry, then go PMP route. But if you're going to stay in this industry, RTPM is the way to go.
I agree 100%, and I would take it a little bit further and say if you're going to be a project management professional, regardless of what industry you're in, it's probably good to have the PMP, but I would do both the PMP and the RTPM if I could.
Yeah, but if they're going to stay in the industry, I would say go to the RTPM first, because it's a good foundation to build for the PMP. Because a lot of people, when they read the project management, the PMBOK, When they read that book, they're like, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh!" It's kind of like the first chapter in the TDMM, right? And the principles of transmission.
Yeah.
I call that I call that the weed out chapter, because people want to start with the RCD and they read that chapter like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "It gets easier. Just get past that first chapter."
And how many volumes is the TDMM, Chuck?
2.
Exactly.
2,200 pages.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And that's another recommendation I tell people all the time, too. When they ask me, they're thinking about getting their credentials, get it now.
Yeah.
Because when the 16th it comes out, it's going to have more pages than the 15th.
Yeah.
I got mine on the 8th edition. I don't want to show how old I am, but we did have 2 manuals, but now when you look
was the 8th edition?
That's when I got my RCD.
Okay.
I got it off the 8th edition. Now, you look at them now, I don't know how you guys get so many pages in that binder. I mean, it's like you got almost kind of, it's like the thing, the drawer where you open up and it goes, springs out. It's kind of like that, trying to get all that paper in there.
I think we use a press.
Yeah, there you go. Well, let's have a fun conversation now. Let's have a fun conversation.
All right.
BICSI Vegas. When? Where?
BICSI Vegas, yes. We're going to be in Las Vegas from the 15th to the 19th of September. It's going to be a great conference. We've got something new coming up that I think attendees will enjoy. Might have a little something to do with the sphere, but we'll see when we get there.
Oh, nice.
So I don't want to spill the beans too early on that one, but we've got a lot of exciting things coming up for the conference.
Is the Vegas conference bigger or smaller in size or attendees to the winter conference?
I would say they're comparable. Because there's a group of folks that obviously
don't want to travel across the country.
That may not want to travel across the country, or maybe the time of the year works out best for them. But there's a lot of folks that go to both conferences, but they usually have different audiences, but it's about the same, right? So I would say they're comparable.
So would you recommend the fall conference to installers, technicians, as well as project managers, estimators, if they have the means and wherewithal to attend?
I would recommend both. I don't know that I would recommend one over the other for them. Although I would say the winter conference is pretty exciting from an installer perspective because of the cabling skills challenge that we do at the winter conference. We don't have the cabling skills challenge at the fall conference, but there's a lot of education that the installers and techs could learn from and gain in terms of their skills and understanding of perhaps what it takes to move beyond the tech and installation, take the career path to the next level, to design or project management or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time, John, to sit down with me, and I'm glad to hear that you actually listened to the podcast. And I heard you say knowledge is power, so I'm going to clip that out. And that might show up on the podcast sometime.
I did, and knowledge is power. I mean,
absolutely.
You think about it, knowledge really is power, and we appreciate everything that you do, Chuck, for the industry, and certainly for BICSI and helping us get the word out. And always happy to have you here at the headquarters.
I always like to come down here. It's not that far of a drive for me.
It's not. You're like in the backyard.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Chuck.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.